Welcome to another episode of Tea with Me. My name is Sarah. I'm an astrologer, a mama, a friend, and I'm happy to be hanging out here with you. I invite you to pour yourself some tea or do whatever feels right for you to get cozy, get comfortable, and prepare for a pause. Take a few deep breaths. Notice wherever you are, come into your body as fully as feels right. I'm noticing the warmth of the fire on my back. It's a beautiful rainy day outside. The trees are changing colors. It's so magnificent. It's like fire, those maple leaves. They look like stars of red and green and yellow. Yesterday, I went for a really wonderful walk through the forest here where I live. And some of my neighbors had cleared out this really beautiful piece of trail that I hadn't really walked on before because it was literally, you couldn't tell that it was a trail. And they had pushed the logs to the side and they had taken some of the trees down. And I was there with my daughter and her friend, and we were just going through this trail. And I knew it, I mean, they had done such a beautiful job that I knew it was going to hook me up with the other trail, whereas before it was just like this brambly forest, like going into the depths of darkness and having no idea where you were going to go and if you were going to get there. And now it was this beautiful trail, where nobody else was. And the trees and the leaves, just this crunchy fall day. And I think that sense of like having the guidance of the path was really comforting to me. And also the tension and the excitement of not having been there and coming up upon this one really big stone just covered in moss with a tree beside it. And the tree was one of those ones where it kind of grew out and then the branch turned up so that the trunk made this total L shape. And it was thick and strong, and I could get up on it and straddle the L shape and just sit in the little crux of tree by this big mossy stone. And I was just filled with so much joy and enthusiasm and appreciation for the place. And so the girls started, like playing on the stone and they were doing their game. And I took a moment just to sit down and breathe. And I'd been like struggling with some negative thought patterns, just intrusive thought, and I think it can be such a, when you think about magic and manifesting and how do I bring abundance into my life? How do I bring everything I want into my life? How do I keep the things that I have? All of it. There's so much talk out there like that can feel as though, right, you create your own reality, right? Imagine it and it'll become. And so then when these intrusive thought patterns are coming and it's like, oh my God, like everything terrible is going to come down and um finding myself just getting into this place of reinforcing that and then judging it, right? Being like, now because I've had these thoughts, then this is what's going to come true because this is what I'm manifesting. And then, oh, when I say that, right, it's like right here, here in that like solar plexus place. Yuck. All right, can we just get rid of that? Yuck. So there I was in the forest. Big breath. There I was in the forest, blue sky, really windy, but beautiful windy, and the forest windy. So it wasn't like my hair being whipped back and gonna be blown over. And I had a scarf wrapped around my head, so my ears were nice and safe, and my neck was nice and covered. And the sun was down. It was a warmer day than we had in a long time. And I'm on this new little piece of trail that I know is going to link up with this other trail that I call the underworld. So I know I'm going to make it to the underworld. And I'm sitting down and there's nowhere else to be. There's like the sound of 6-year-olds having a fabulous time kind of fading into the background. And I close my eyes and I'm breathing and I'm on this little stone now on the other side of the path. And I thought for a moment, like, what do I want? What is the magic that I'm creating right now? And what came was really freedom, and freedom from that there's like a right way, and freedom from that negative thought pattern, and freedom from judging myself for the negative thought pattern, and freedom from knowing what's going to happen or fear of not knowing what's going to happen, and freedom to just relax and lean back into the incredible tapestry of fall and the changing seasons, to really notice exactly where I am, to notice my agency and will in that, and my mental agency and will in that. I can choose where I walk in the forest. I can choose what part of the story I want to focus on and drop into. It felt so liberating. And my heart right now is swelling. And I'm like, I really want that liberation. I really want to share that liberation. That moment of like joyful peace. I've been thinking a lot about the story of Vasilisa and the Baba Yaga, similar to Cinderella in a lot of ways. Vasilisa is a young girl and her mother is dying. And she's this really good, sweet mother, and she's lying on her deathbed, and Vasilisa and her father are there saying goodbye to her. Just as she's about to leave this world, the mother gives Vasilisa a gift, and it's a doll that she's made for her, that she's sewn and stitched with her hands. Oh, I love the magic of dolls. Love the magic of dolls and totems. And I mean, these little figures can hold so much love, intention. And people have been working with them for thousands of years. And so she gives her this doll, right? And then she dies. And this is in the fall. The winter comes, spring arrives. And by spring, her father is already remarried. So now she has a stepmother and 2 stepsisters. And her stepmother is terribly jealous of her. And her stepsisters are terribly jealous of her. And they do not like Vasilisa. And the father sort of fades into the background. And Vasilisa's home with these women. And they basically, like in Cinderella, make her into their servant. She cooks for them. She cleans for them. She has to go into the fire nook and clean out the cinders. They even take their beans and their grains and they throw them into the cinders and say, now sort that out. Now get those beans and grains out of there, Vasilisa. And no matter what she does, they hate her more and more. And it's one of those things, right, where she's like so close to the source. She's just got this pure radiating beauty. And she's working so hard to make it good for them. And it's like the more she tries to make it hard, the more she tries to make it good, the more it grates on them. And so one day they're like, we just can't be around her anymore. Maybe if we send her out into the forest, if we send her out to the forest to get fire, because I think we'll let our fire go out. We'll send her to get fire from the Baba Yaga, and surely she'll kill her. And so Vasilisa comes home. She's been collecting firewood all day. And the stepmother's there, and she says, Vasilisa, the fire has gone out, and I am too old, and your sisters are too scared, and we need to get some light, an ember. Go into the forest, find the Baba Yaga, and get us some fire. Yes, stepmother, says Vasilisa. She puts on her apron. She's got these deep pockets, and deep down in her pocket is the doll that her mother gave her. She sets off into the woods. She has a little bit of bread. She eats a little of the bread. She gives a little of the bread to the doll. She doesn't know which path to take. And each time she comes to a crossroad, she asks the doll in her own special way. And at each crossroad, the doll tells her which way she should go. Through the forest, into the darkness. At the end of day, she comes to a house. It stands on a single chicken foot and is twirling around. And all around the house are skulls aflame with fire made into a fence. And in the dark sky comes a mortar with a woman in it, a giant mortar like a boat. And she's rowing with the pestle. Oh, and I love using my mortar and pestle, right? But here's the Baba Yaga, her hair streaming back, this old woman with fangs, big long nose, and she's coming down, rowing with that pestle. The mortar lands, and she looks at Vasilisa. What are you doing here, girl? I've come to get fire for my family. Ah, you let your fire go out. How shameful. What makes you think I should give you fire, she says. Because I asked, says Vasilisa. Ha ha ha, says the Baba Yaga. That's the right answer. Fine. I will give you fire if you complete these tasks. And so she brings the girl into the house. And they sit down, and it's a big house. I mean, there's many rooms, and it's full of dirty pots and dirty pans, and the Baba Yaga just eats. I mean, she eats enough for like 20 people. She's just devouring. I mean, and it's all like meat and all of this really old, juicy, bloody meat rotting down her face. Clean all of this up by the morning, she says. And by the way, there's a bunch of old rotten corn. Separate it from the good corn. She looks, and there's a huge pile. And if you can do that by morning, I may give you fire. But if not, you die. The Baba Yaga takes off. She goes to do whatever bidding adventures Baba Yagas do. And Vasilisa's left completely depressed, uncertain. There's absolutely no way. It seems completely impossible. She touches the doll in her pocket, and just touching the doll is comforting. And she hears the doll say, don't worry about it. I got you. Just rest. And there's so many stories like this. I mean, it makes me think of Psyche and Eros. There's so many stories like this where the answer, when there's some crazy sorting, crazy task to do, is just rest. So she does, and the doll takes care of it. And by the morning, when the Baba Yaga comes back, the house is clean and the corn is sorted. Amazing, says the Baba Yaga. You did it. But now I have this whole pile of poppy seeds and dirt and ash, and I need you to pick the poppy seeds out of this pile of poppy seeds, dirt, and ash by the morning, or else you die. Again, she flies off. And again, Vasilisa feeds the doll. And again, the doll says, "Don't worry about it. I will take care of it." So Vasilisa rests, the doll sorts the seeds, and the Baba Yaga returns. "Ah," she says, "you have done it." And at this point, there had been some men on horseback who'd been bringing the dawn, bringing the night, bringing the day. One man on a white horse, one man on a red horse, one man on a black horse. And there had been hands, kind of like, was it thing, thing in the Addams family, hands, but they can fly and float, who had been doing service for the Baba Yaga. And Vasilisa is really curious about these men on the horses who bring the dawn and bring the night, and about these hands that float in the air and can do it. And she says, "Yaga, can I ask you some questions?" Yaga's like, "Yeah, you can ask me some questions." And she's like, "What is the man on the white horse? Oh, he brings the dawn. What is the man on the red horse? He brings the sunset. What is the man on the black horse? He brings the night." And then she's just about to ask about the hands. And then the doll starts jumping up and she's like, "No, no, no, no more." And she says, Baba Yaga says, "Do you have any more questions?" "No, no, grandmother, I don't." And the Yaga says, "All right. Well, you've done all these tasks. What more do you want?" And she says, "Nothing. I just bring the blessings of my mother." At which point the Baba Yaga screams, "Blessings, blessings, no blessings. We want no blessings here. Here, take your fire, go." She gives her a skull full of the fire and says, "Get out here." Vasilisa goes back through the forest, follows the path she now knows, reaches her home, where the stepmother and the stepsisters thought surely she has died in the forest. She had not. She uses the flame to light their hearth, and she goes to sleep. And as she sleeps, the glowing eyes of the skull pour into the stepmother and the stepsisters and burn them to ash. Hmm. And after I tell this, the thought that comes to mind is like, because we're all of it, right? In these myths, we all have all the parts. We all have the stepmother. We all have the stepsisters. We all have the Baba Yaga. Even maybe the impresent father, the sweet mother, and Vasilisa, shining bright. Vasa Yaga. I want to call her that. And I think that that's like the part I really want to be, right? Is Vasa Yaga. Like, I want to be that like glowing, young, like what's going to happen next, sweet little girl. And I want to be the old witch with the sharpened teeth, my wisdom, my discernment, my power. And, you know, negative thought patterns, let's not judge them. There are times, right, where jealousy comes up, stepmother, where checking out happens, father, where being maybe a little bit too sweet, a little bit too good, as they call it in this story, which is in Women Who Run with Wolves, the too good mother. All those parts are there. And where do I want to be? Maybe that's the freedom in it. Like, where do I want to play in the ecology of this story? Vasa Yaga, Baba Lisa. It makes me think a little bit. It's interesting. Vasa Yaga or Baba Lisa, melding these worlds of the maiden and the crone, which in a way, when that's kind of like this life force energy merging these two realms. And I don't want to throw the mother out in it. That's what I am. That's a big part of it. You need the mother, right? You need to bring the life. And but for the mother to really like also hold all of it and hold all of it for our children, hold all of it so that we're modeling, we can do all of it. Doesn't have to be all perfect, doesn't have to be all judgment. We can like enter into the mystery as a whole person and do the caretaking and do the loving and do the conscious modeling and. So there is a full moon coming up this week. It's on Thursday in the morning. So Wednesday night might be a really good time to watch the moon rise if it's clear. We're still, sun is in Libra, sign of balance, sign of love, relating, and the sun is going to be conjunct the asteroid Juno. And Juno is really associated with partnership and, again, love and commitment and relationship. She often, if you've seen like the Disney Hercules movie or even, most of the stories, she gets a pretty, well, the Disney Hercules movie actually kind of like glorifies her or makes her look nice, sweet. But in most of the Greek myths, like she's pretty jealous, kind of like the stepmothers, right? And Jupiter, Zeus is always going off having his affairs, and Juno's just doing everything she can to stop him, seek retribution. But she also, she really comes from earlier traditions of matriarchal culture and matriarchal religion and belief system. And she is an appropriated goddess by the Greco-Roman tradition. And so, to really tune into that like divine partnership, which can be in oneself, in partnership with friends, with lovers, with whoever we're with. But she really embodies that like that connection. And at her most positive, it would really be that it's like that heart-filled, committed connection with either the other in oneself, as we just talked about all the many parts that might come up in just the example of one story, or another person. So, I think that energy, especially in Libra and conjunct the sun by degree, is going to be strong, right? How do we hold commitment to the people around us? How do we hold commitment to our loves? How do we hold commitment to the duality within oneself and seek balance in that? And then we have the moon in the Martian sign of Aries, which is really about birth, about will, about fire, about the individual. How do I go forth and be myself, my one self? And then I think of, Vasilisa, she goes out, she does herself. And then she brings the fire back, creates the hearth. So the moon is going to be conjunct Chiron, and I was saying Vasa, Baba, Yaga, Lisa. It's like melding these parts of ourselves. Chiron is really about merging parts and merging realms. So in the sky, right, there's the 7 visible planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And then we've got those trans-Saturnian planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and all of those Kuiper Belt objects, and then, Sedna way out there. And then we have, there's the asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter, and that has Juno. And for example, there's the asteroid Athena, there's Hygeia, Vesta, who else is in there? Astrea. And then you have another asteroid belt, which is between the visible planets, so Saturn, and the more recently discovered sort of trans social collective planets, as they're known. Uh, and those are called the centaurs, and they're named for the centaurs. And Chiron is really the most well known of the centaurs. And Chiron is often associated with Kundalini energy and with bridging that realm, right? Bridging the self and the all. There's flies flying around in here. So if you see any little magic black dots, that's what that is. So I think of Chiron when I think of the maiden and the crone, and when I think of that merger in oneself. And also, Chiron is about healing. You know, the wounded healer is the archetype of Chiron, because in the end of Chiron's life, he was given a wound in a battle. It was from an arrow that was dipped in poison that he had made, and it accidentally, from an ally, Hercules, hits him. He has a terrible wound. He's in so much pain. And like, oh my God, I don't like blessings and healing and blessings and strength and admiration for anyone, everyone during the times when we go through pain, because it's really hard. It was so hard for Chiron that he wanted to die. And ultimately did by changing places with Prometheus or freeing Prometheus. There was this wonderful like karmic exchange that happened there, where Prometheus, who had brought fire to humans against the will of the gods, had been chained to the stone, and the eagle was pecking out his liver every day. And by Chiron releasing himself from his pain, also at the same time there's a simultaneous release of Prometheus. And so it's kind of like this birth of freedom um with also like a surrender and a like acknowledgement of the death and the letting go. And Chiron, that's the archetype that I think, like, if you Google Chiron, it'll come up as the wounded healer. But really, I mean, Chiron's life was spent as teacher healer. And where Chiron is in your chart, it may feel like a place where you're like, whoa, that's really uncomfortable for me. But it's a place where we can share so much wisdom and so much healing. And, he also was in a beautiful partnership. So that makes me think of this Juno conjunct the sun as well, with Chericlo, and she's another one of the centaurs. And they had this really beautiful, amazing connection, amazing partnership. She had been a river nymph who transformed herself, a shapeshifter, into a centaur to be with him. And she really is this yin energy, this like healing, soothing, like accepting, here, we've got you energy. And so Chiron conjunct the moon in Aries. And Chiron has a over 50-year cycle, very elliptical. So some signs Chiron is in for a very long time. Some signs moves very fast, really going between Saturn and really outside of Uranus, even at some point. Just this big, big ellipses. And so bringing that healing to the part of us, the fire, the Aries part, the part that needs to be able to be direct, the part that needs to be able to be like, hey, I'm here. During that big solar eclipse, if y'all can remember it, that happened in April, Chiron was right on the eclipse. So that's another time where maybe you can think back and think, what healing was going on then? And maybe probably not like with the intensity of that eclipse, but here there might be like a similar healing about like, who are you in yourself? And then with this being the full moon, not the new moon as that eclipse was, and it's putting it into balance with Libra. How can you heal yourself and also have it all, right? Have that relational balance with the other, with with commitment and connection. And again, it doesn't have to be a partner, and the other can be in yourself. These are cardinal signs. So now we're getting a little tricky technical and we don't need to get in there too much. But cardinal signs are literally about like beginnings and starting something. And so there is probably like an increase of energy. Like, yeah, what are we going to bring forward? What is this thing that's coming, that's birthing right now? And there's a grand cross at this full moon. And so, while we have the opposition between the sun and the moon, as we do at all full moons, there's also an opposition between Mars and Pluto. And I'm going to say, if you Google Mars and Pluto, there's some scary stuff out there. And this is not scary. Or maybe it is. I don't mean to scare you. I just went into the forest with the Baba Yaga. And I think this moon and Chiron and Aries, maybe it's not that it's not scary or it is scary or there is fear or there isn't fear or we can't do negative thought patterns or we can do negative thought patterns or if we get scared, that means it's going to happen and it's bad. Again, like go back to the freedom, like the Promethean freedom. And we're healing the part of ourself that knows like I have courage. That's the Aries. Healing the part of ourselves that says, I know I've got this. And Mars is in Cancer. Mars is really bringing energy to like tending our feelings, tending our inner worlds. And so, maybe that's the other part, right? We're doing the relating, we're doing the expressing, we're going on the journey. And then Mars in Cancer, maybe that's the part where Vasilisa goes to sleep. It's like, you can rest. It's the part where she goes and drinks some water, where she takes a bath. It's the part where we're like, all right, I'm going to take a break because then I'm going to go do a little bit of nurturing. I'm going to do some caretaking. I'm going to do it for myself. I'm going to do it for you. And then we've got that Pluto, right? Who's direct now, finishing up that time in Capricorn. How do we do it with mastery? How do we do it in the big all? How do we do it with these systems that are so painful? How do we do it in these systems that so need to change? How do we do it in these systems that can feel so big and oppressive? So big and oppressive. And the thing with the Grand Cross is there's urgent action needed. And that doesn't mean it needs to be some sort of yang action, get up and go for a run. It doesn't mean you got to sit down at your computer and write out 1,000 things. There's the internal action, there's the action of creativity. It's like with Vasilisa, there's the action of rest, there's the action of surrender. And with Pluto, that's a big part of the action. If you look at the glyph, some people say it's like a crucible, right? It's a circle, it's kind of held in this little sphere. It's also like surrender. And then with this moon conjunct Chiron, we're healing that. We're healing that ability to like birth into something, to be something new, to negotiate this grand cross, to negotiate all of the different parts of us, the Baba Lisas, the stepmothers, the fathers, the mothers, the forest within. I have so much faith in our capacity, in your capacity, in my capacity to be in the freedom of the forest. Blessings on you. And thanks for joining me for another episode of Tea with Me. Goodbye for now.